My name is Claire Whitfield. I'm 32 years old. 3 weeks ago, my parents stood up in front of 30 guests at their 40th wedding anniversary dinner and made an announcement that would have made anyone in that room smile. Next week, we're taking the whole family to Hawaii, my father said, raising his glass. One more celebration just for us. The table erupted. My sister actually gasped and clutched her husband's arm. I sat there picturing white sand and turquoise water, already mentally packing a suitcase I hadn't owned in years. It would have been my first real vacation since college. Then I made one mistake. I asked a simple, reasonable question. What time is our flight? My father's face changed instantly, like I'd interrupted something sacred. My mother's smile didn't drop exactly. It just went rigid, frozen at the corners. And in front of every single guest at that table, my father said the words that ended something inside me for good. You don't need to know that, Claire. You're not coming. Someone has to stay home with the kids. 30 pairs of eyes turned toward me. 30 witnesses to the exact moment my own family told me, out loud, that I didn't count as one of them. What they didn't know was that I'd been quietly building an entire second life for 3 years, one they knew nothing about. And that night, sitting in my mother's kitchen with a dish towel in my hands, I decided it was finally time to stop hiding it. Before I tell you what happened next, if a story like this hits close to home for you, stick around, because it gets a lot more interesting from here. To understand why I eventually walked away from everyone I'd ever known, you need to understand the house I grew up in. The Whitfield house sits in a tidy Boston suburb, white siding, black shutters, a lawn cut so precisely it looks computer-generated. The kind of house that exists to be admired from the sidewalk. My father, Howard, spent 30 years as a branch manager at a regional bank before retiring. My mother, Diane, has never held a paying job, but she'll remind you, unprompted, that she's busier than any executive. She runs the church's women's auxiliary, organizes 2 neighborhood fundraisers a year, and considers protecting the family's reputation a full-time occupation. Then there's my younger sister, Brooke, 3 years behind me, married to Trent, a corporate litigator who works his job title into conversations the way other people mention the weather. They have 2 children, Mason, 5, and Ivy, 3, and a glossy black SUV that somehow always claims the best spot in our parents' driveway. My 10-year-old Honda gets parked on the street. Move your car, Claire, my mother would say without fail. Trent's bringing the SUV, and people notice the driveway first. I never argued, I just moved the car. That's the strange thing about being the overlooked one in a family. Eventually you stop registering all the small signals. The worst parking spot, the seat at the far end of the table, the way your mother introduces your sister by her husband's law firm and introduces you as Claire she helps out. I'm an accountant, mostly part-time and remote, modest income, flexible hours. Nothing the Whitfields would brag about at a dinner party. What none of them knew was the thing I'd been quietly doing for 3 years on the side, the thing that started after my old life collapsed. I'd learned, in private, how to really see people. Let me show you what helping out actually looked like in my family. Thanksgiving, I arrive at 6 in the morning to start the turkey. I set my mother's good china, the set I'm allowed to wash but never allowed to use. I arrange the centerpiece, polish the serving spoons, and time 7 side dishes so they all land on the table at once. Brooke strolls in around noon in cashmere, kisses everyone hello, and takes her seat to be served. Christmas is the same routine, plus wrapping every gift my mother bought, because her arthritis flares up every December, though somehow never on bridge night, which happens 3 times a week without fail. At my niece and nephew's birthday parties, I'm the entertainment, the cleanup crew, and the emergency babysitter rolled into one. Last year I spent 8 straight hours running Mason's dinosaur-themed party while Brooke got her nails done because she needed a minute. The one time I asked if I could possibly skip a family dinner because of a client deadline, my mother's voice turned to ice. Family comes first, Claire. We all make sacrifices. Funny, I seem to be the only one making any. The breaking point built slowly, in tiny moments. One Christmas, my gift from Brooke was a kitchen apron that read World's Best Aunt in glitter script. She handed it to me like she'd given real thought to it. I wore that apron every single time I came over to cook, clean, or watch the kids, which by then was most weekends. I remember the exact night. The truth finally landed. I was scrubbing my mother's roasting pan after another family dinner, and I realized I couldn't remember the last time anyone had invited me anywhere without expecting something from me in return. 3 years before that anniversary dinner, my life had already fallen apart once, quietly, in a different way. I'd spent 4 years with a man named Adam. We talked about a future, a wedding, kids, the whole picture. Then one evening he sat me down and said the sentence I will never fully shake. I love you, Claire, but I don't think I'm in love with you anymore. You're just there, you're always just there. Just there, like furniture, like wallpaper. After he left, I found myself wandering into a pawn shop downtown for no reason I could name. Maybe I was looking for something to fill the space he'd left behind. That's when I saw it, a second-hand Nikon DSLR, a little scratched but clean, priced at $170. I bought it with money I should have saved and told absolutely no one. That camera became my secret. I started photographing the people everyone else walks past without seeing: elderly women waiting alone at bus stops, the exhausted faces of overnight janitors finishing their shifts, the cracked, working hands of a street vendor folding boxes at dawn. People society looks straight through, the same way my own family looked through me. I called the series Unseen Women. I built an anonymous account, no face, no real name attached, just the photographs. Over 3 years, it quietly grew to 12,000 followers, strangers who understood exactly what I was trying to say without me saying it out loud. I kept the camera wrapped in an old scarf at the back of my closet, the only thing in my life that belonged entirely to me. 3 weeks before my parents' anniversary, an email landed in my inbox that I nearly deleted as spam. It was from a small gallery in Carmel by the Sea, California, Pacific Light Gallery, asking if I'd be open to a conversation about my photography. I read it 4 times before I noticed my hands were shaking. I didn't reply right away. Good things didn't happen to people like me. At least, that's what I still believed. There was exactly one person in my family who actually saw me: my mother's younger sister, Aunt Lillian. To my mother, Lillian is the family cautionary tale. She never married, skipped the real career, and 20 years ago moved out to Carmel by the Sea to open a small cafe with a pottery studio in the back room. My mother has never quite forgiven her for it. She had real potential, she likes to sigh, and she chose to play with mud instead. I'd been calling Aunt Lillian every single Sunday night for 7 years. My mother had no idea. Lillian was the first person I ever showed my photographs to. I sent her just one, testing the water, and her reply made me cry at my kitchen table. Claire, this is extraordinary, you have a gift. No one had ever called anything I'd done extraordinary. She was the one who kept pushing me to shoot more, post more, take it seriously. And 3 weeks before the anniversary party, she told me something that changed everything. I hope you don't mind, she said, but I sent your photography page to a gallery owner I know out here. His name's Daniel Ross. He's always hunting for new artists. I nearly dropped my phone. Aunt Lil, that's the gallery that emailed me. I know, sweetheart. He told me he wants to talk to you about a solo show. I went quiet, my heart hammering. That's an actual career thing. It is, she said, gentle but completely certain. And you've earned it. You don't need anyone's permission to chase what you love, Claire. I learned that lesson far too late. You don't have to. That night, I finally wrote Daniel Ross back. Now let me take you to the night everything broke open. My parents' 40th anniversary was, according to my mother, a milestone that demanded a real event. 30 guests, a catered menu I'd help assemble to save money, and an entire evening dedicated to celebrating 40 years of the Whitfields' picture-perfect marriage. The preparation started a full week early. I took 3 days off from my accounting clients to handle it. I ordered the flowers, white roses and peonies, exactly as specified. I hand-lettered 60 place cards in the calligraphy style my mother insisted on. I coordinated with the caterer, pressed every tablecloth, and polished crystal glasses that had been a wedding gift 4 decades earlier. The day of the party, I arrived at 7 in the morning in jeans and a plain shirt, because there was no point dressing up when I'd be in the kitchen for the next 10 hours. By 6 that evening, the house looked flawless. Candles glowed on every surface. The dining table stretched the length of the living room, set for 30 with my mother's finest china. I'd changed into a simple black dress, nothing that would draw attention. On! Claire, my mother caught me in the hallway, looking me up and down with a frown. Is that what you're wearing? It's black, I thought it was appropriate. It's fine, I suppose, just stay in the background tonight. This is about your father and me. I nodded, I always nodded. Guests started arriving at 7, old colleagues, church friends, neighbors with lawns as immaculate as ours. 30 people who thought they knew the Whitfield family. None of them really knew me at all. And within 3 hours, that wouldn't matter anymore. Brooke arrived at exactly 7:15, timed for maximum entrance impact, sweeping through the door in a red wrap dress with Trent behind her in a charcoal suit, and the kids dressed like they'd stepped out of a catalog. My mother rushed over, gushing about how beautiful Brooke looked, how sharp Trent's suit was, how precious the grandchildren were. I watched from the kitchen doorway, holding a tray of appetizers. Everyone, you remember my daughter Brooke and her husband Trent, my mother announced to the room. Trent just made partner at his firm, we're so proud. Applause, warm laughter. My mother never once mentioned that I'd done Trent's taxes for free, 3 years running. I circled the room with the tray, refilling drinks, answering questions from guests who had no idea who I was. Are you with the catering company? One woman asked, reaching for a crab cake. Before I could answer, my mother swooped in. Oh, that's Claire, my other daughter, she's helping out tonight. The woman smiled politely and turned away. My mother didn't even notice. She never did. At one point, Trent handed me Ivy, already squirming, while Mason tugged at his jacket. Can you take them? Brooke and I need to mingle. Not would you mind. Not thank you. Just a request the way you'd hand off a coat. I took them. I fed them in the kitchen, wiped juice off Ivy's dress, told Mason 3 stories to keep him from running into the party. By the time I came back out, dessert was already being served. No one had thought to save me a plate. I hadn't eaten all day. The announcement came right after dessert. My father stood, tapping his glass with a fork. The room fell silent. 30 faces turned toward him with expectant smiles. Diane and I want to thank you all for being here, he began. 40 years of marriage, 4 decades of building this family, this home. My mother beamed beside him. Brooke reached for Trent's hand. I stood near the kitchen doorway, still holding a dirty dessert plate. To celebrate, my father went on, we have a surprise. A dramatic pause. Next week, we're taking the whole family to Hawaii. 1 week at the 4 Seasons in Maui, a second celebration, just us. The room erupted in delighted murmurs. How wonderful, you two deserve it. Brooke actually squealed. Dad, that's amazing, the kids are going to love it. Something lifted in my chest. The whole family. That meant me too. For once I wouldn't be the help, I'd actually be included. I stepped forward, allowing myself a small smile. That sounds incredible, I said. What time is our flight? The question landed like a stone dropped into still water. My father's expression shifted. He glanced at my mother. Something passed between them, a look I'd seen 1,000 times, but never understood until that exact moment. Claire, he said slowly, you don't need to know the flight time. The room went quiet, not the comfortable hush of anticipation, but the tense, sinking quiet of something going visibly wrong. I don't understand, I heard myself say. He cleared his throat. Because you're not going. 30 pairs of eyes. That's how many people watched my own father tell me I wasn't part of the family trip. Someone needs to stay behind, my mother added, as though this were the most obvious thing in the world. Brooke and Trent need a real vacation. That means you'll watch the kids. But honestly, Claire, my mother snapped, you don't have anything important going on. Anything important going on. I had a remote accounting practice, a secret gallery email sitting unanswered in my inbox, and 12,000 strangers who'd been watching my work for 3 years. None of it counted to her. It's just a week, Trent added, not even glancing at me. The kids love you. I stood there in my plain black dress, holding a dirty plate, while 30 people watched my own family erase me. A few guests looked uncomfortable. Most simply looked away. One woman leaned toward her husband and murmured, poor thing, she must be used to it by now. He nodded. My glass trembled in my hand. I set it down along with the plate, because I didn't trust myself not to drop either one. Of course, I said, smiling the smile I'd learned to wear after 32 years of being the one who helps, the one who doesn't complain, the one who is always, always just there. But something inside me had finally cracked. Not broken, cracked, the way a fall. T-line shifts right before the ground gives way. I slipped into the kitchen, leaned against the counter, closed my eyes, and for the first time in my life began making a completely different kind of plan. The party rolled on without me, of course. I stood at the sink mechanically washing dishes while laughter drifted in from the next room. At some point, Brooke appeared, her red dress swishing in the doorway. "Claire, don't be upset," she said, touching my arm. "You know how it is. Trent and I really need this time together. It's been so stressful with the kids." I kept washing. "I understand. Besides, you're so good with Mason and Ivy, they won't even notice we're gone." She sighed the way she always does when she decides I'm being difficult. "Look, it's just a week, and it's not like you have a boyfriend or anything tying you down. Your schedule's flexible." Flexible? That word again, as if my time had no real value simply because I chose how to spend it. "Trent made a list," she went on, already pulling out her phone. "Schedules, allergies, Ivy can't have strawberries, remember? And Mason's ear thing might act up, he may need drops. I'll text you everything." She never once asked if I was willing, she just assumed. Trent appeared a moment later, loosening his tie. "All set?" he asked Brooke. "Great, we're heading out early tomorrow to pack." Then, over his shoulder, "Brooke, your mom wants photos before we go." And they were gone before I could say a word. Not that I would have, not that I ever did. Standing alone in my mother's kitchen, staring at the list of instructions Brooke had just texted me, one thought finally crystallized, sharp and clear. They don't see me as family, they see me as staff. And staff can resign. It was nearly midnight when the last guests finally left, and my parents had gone to bed, worn out from 40 years' worth of congratulations. I was alone in the living room folding tablecloths when I remembered a file I needed to send a client. My own laptop was at home, but my mother's was sitting open on the kitchen counter. She won't mind, I told myself. I'd borrowed her things 1,000 times before. I opened the laptop. Her email was already logged in. And there, near the top of her inbox, was a subject line with my name in it. "Ray, Hawaii arrangements, Claire situation." I should have closed it immediately. I should have minded my own business. Instead, I clicked. The thread ran between my mother and Brooke, starting a full week before the party. From Diane Whitfield to Brooke, "Keep Claire there to watch the kids. She doesn't have anything important going on anyway. It's basically free help. She should be grateful we're even giving her something to do." Brooke's reply, "Totally agree, Mom. She'll probably feel useful for once, honestly. Kind of sad, but it works out for us." I read it 3 times to be sure I understood it correctly. Free help, grateful, kind of sad. I took screenshots. I emailed them to myself. I deleted my own message from the sent folder and wiped the browser history. Then I sat in my mother's dark kitchen, in the house I grew up in, and finally let myself understand exactly what I was to this family. I drove home at 1 in the morning through empty streets. My apartment was small, a 1-bedroom my mother once called depressing, the single time she visited. But it was mine, the only place I could actually exhale. I sat in the dark for a long time, scrolling to the email thread with Daniel Ross. We'd exchanged a few messages. He wanted to see my full portfolio in person, said he was genuinely excited about the series. I could go. I could actually go. I called the one person who would understand, even though it was past midnight. Aunt Lillian picked up on the second ring. "Claire, what's wrong?" I told her everything, the announcement, the humiliation, the emails. My voice cracked exactly once, reading aloud the words "free help." When I finished, there was a long silence. Then she said something I will never forget. "I have a spare room above the cafe. I could use help with mornings anyway. And that gallery, it's 20 minutes from my place." "Aunt Lil, I can't just." "Yes, you can. You can leave, Claire. You can choose yourself for once. The only person stopping you is you." I hung up at 2 in the morning. By 6, I'd started packing. 2 days before my family's Hawaii flight, I drove back to my parents' house one final time. My mother was in the living room, coordinating outfits for the trip. Brooke sat on the couch scrolling resort reviews. My father read his newspaper in the armchair, present in body, absent everywhere else. "I need to tell you something," I said from the doorway. My mother didn't look up. "If it's about the kids' schedule, Brooke already sent it." "It's not about that," I steadied my voice. "I'm not watching the kids, I won't be available." That got their attention. Brooke's head snapped up. My mother's hands froze over a pile. "Sundresses, what do you mean, not available?" "I have a work opportunity in California. I leave tomorrow." "California," my father lowered the paper. "What kind of work opportunity?" "Something I've been working toward. I don't owe you the details." And for once, I genuinely didn't feel like I did. Brooke's face twisted. "Claire, you can't be serious. I'm counting on you. We planned around this." "You planned around me without asking me," I said quietly. "I'm not canceling my life because you assumed I didn't have one." The silence afterward was suffocating. My mother finally stood, her voice gone cold as January. "This is incredibly selfish, Claire. Brooke needs your help. Family comes first." "Family comes first," I repeated, "except when it comes to inviting me to Hawaii." She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time in my life, my mother had nothing to say. My father cleared his throat. "If you leave, don't expect us to welcome you back with open arms." "I understand," I said, and this time I meant it completely. The next day was a masterclass in guilt. My mother called 6 times, each voicemail more theatrical than the last. "You're tearing this family apart, Claire. I hope you can live with that. Your father barely ate dinner." Brooke leaned harder into wounded innocence. "I don't understand why you're doing this to me. Don't you care about us at all?" Then came the text that nearly broke me. "You're going to end up alone, you know, just like Aunt Lillian. Is that what you want?" I stared at that message for a long time. They meant it as a threat. But Aunt Lillian had her own business, her own art, her own life built entirely on her own terms. Aunt Lillian was happy. Maybe ending up like her wasn't a warning at all. Maybe it was a promise. I turned my phone off. The last thing I did before leaving Boston was walk through my empty apartment one more time. 3 suitcases by the door. Everything else, the second-hand couch, the rest of a life I'd been living for everyone but myself, would stay behind. I taped my spare key in an envelope and slid it under my landlord's door. I loaded the Honda as the sun came up, the same 10-year-old car my mother had been embarrassed by for years. It was about to carry me into a completely new life. The drive from Boston to Carmel by the Sea takes roughly 45 hours straight through. I didn't push it. I took 5 days, stopping at roadside motels, eating in diners where nobody knew my name. Somewhere in Nebraska, I pulled off at a rest stop just to watch the sunset paint the prairie gold and pink, and I photographed it, my very first shot as a free woman. On day 3, my phone buzzed when I turned it back on to check directions. A text from Brooke. "Mom says if you're not home when we get back from Hawaii, you're dead to her." I read it once and deleted it. She'd already been treating me like I was invisible for years. At least now I'd be invisible somewhere with an ocean view. On day 4, I called Aunt Lillian from a gas station in Arizona. "About 8 hours out," I told her. "Your room's ready. Fresh sheets, ocean view. And Daniel wants to meet you tomorrow afternoon if you're up for it." My stomach flipped. "Tomorrow, that's so fast." "Claire," she said, warm and certain, "you've waited 3 years for this. It's not fast, it's finally." When I crossed into California, something shifted inside me. The Pacific opened up on my left, endless and blue. I rolled the window down and breathed salt air for the first time in my life. I cried not from sadness, but from sheer, overwhelming relief. At 7 that evening, I pulled into the driveway of the Driftwood Cup, Aunt Lillian's cafe and pottery studio in Carmel by the Sea. She was waiting on the porch, arms open. "Welcome home," she said. And for the first time in 32 years, somewhere actually felt like home. Carmel by the Sea doesn't feel quite real at first. Storybook cottages, art galleries on every corner, ocean fog drifting through the cypress trees. Like the whole town was sketched by someone with a very specific dream. The cafe sat 2 blocks from the beach, Hand-lettered sign, blue shutters, window boxes overflowing with lavender. My room upstairs was small but bright, a bed, a desk by the window, and a view of the Pacific that made my chest ache in a way I didn't have a name for. "You'll work mornings, 6 to noon," Lillian told me over dinner that first night. "After that, your time's your own." "I don't know how to thank you for this." She waved a hand. "Don't thank me, just build something, that's payment enough." The next morning I woke before dawn, tied on a plain canvas apron, not the world's best ant one, which I'd left folded in a drawer in Boston, and learned how to pull a proper pour-over. By noon, I'd made $37 in tips and smiled more than I had in months. At 2 o'clock, I had an appointment at Pacific Light Gallery. Daniel Ross looked nothing like I'd pick. Toured, I'd imagined someone slick and intimidating. Instead, a tall, weathered man with silver hair and kind eyes met me at the door in a rolled-sleeve linen shirt, smiling like we were already old friends. "Claire Whitfield," he said, shaking my hand. "Lillian's told me a lot about you, but honestly, the work speaks for itself." He walked me through the gallery, white walls, careful natural light, photographs displayed with real intention. "I've gone through your whole page," he said. "The Unseen Women series is extraordinary. There's a kind of truth in those images most photographers spend decades chasing." He stopped in front of a monitor displaying a photo I'd taken 2 years earlier, an elderly woman alone at a bus stop, her face a quiet map of patience. "This is the one that made me reach out. There's something in her eyes." "She'd been waiting 40 minutes, I said softly. Nobody stopped to help. Daniel nodded slowly. "You really see people, Claire, that's a gift." Then he turned and said the words that landed like a key turning in a lock. "I'd like to offer you a solo exhibition. 15 pieces. We cover printing, framing, and marketing. You keep 60% of every sale." I signed the contract that Tuesday afternoon, sunlight pouring across his desk. 15 photographs, an opening scheduled for late summer. As I read through the pages, my hands actually started to shake, not from the business terms, but from seeing my own name printed in official type. Artist, Claire Whitfield. A legal document recognizing that my work, and by extension I had value. I thought about every set of taxes I'd done for free, every party I'd thrown without thanks, every hour spent raising children who would grow up never knowing how much I'd quietly given them. Not once had my name appeared on anything that celebrated what I contributed. Until now. "For the exhibition title," Daniel said, pointing to a line near the bottom, "we're proposing Unseen Women, Portraits of the Overlooked. Your call." "It's perfect," I whispered and signed my name. I walked out of that gallery clutching the contract to my chest, physical proof that I wasn't nothing, that I had never been nothing. While I was building a new life on the coast, my family was discovering exactly what my absence actually meant. I didn't witness any of it firsthand. I pieced it together later from voicemails, texts, and one extremely awkward call from my father. Hawaii, apparently, was a disaster. Without me there to handle the kids, Brooke and Trent couldn't manage a single adults-only dinner. Mason had a full meltdown on the beach because nobody packed his favorite sandcastle bucket, something I'd always remembered without being asked. Ivy came down with an ear infection on day 3, and no one could locate the pediatrician's number, because I was always the one who kept track of things like that. My mother spent most of the trip complaining the resort staff weren't attentive enough. She sent her drink back twice. "This isn't relaxing at all," she reportedly told my father. Who planned this trip? He apparently knew better than to remind her that she had. The text started on day 4. "Claire, where are the kids' medication records? Claire, what's Mason's bedtime routine? He won't sleep. Claire, the restaurant has no kids' menu, what do we do?" I didn't answer any of them. I was busy reviewing print proofs at a photo lab in Monterey, choosing frames, and sitting down with a journalist from a regional magazine who wanted to interview me. There's a particular kind of education that comes from absence. It teaches people exactly what they'd been taking for granted. On day 6, Brooke did something she'd never once done before. She searched my name online. For the first time, she found something other than a blank page. 6 weeks later, I stood in the center of Pacific Light Gallery and genuinely couldn't believe it was real. 15 of my photographs hung on the walls, each printed large, framed simply in black. Soft light, a string quartet in the corner, Daniel's idea, not mine, a bartender pouring champagne. 50 guests moved through the room. Artists I'd met through Lillian, collectors Daniel had invited, the journalist already scribbling notes, and strangers who'd come specifically for my work, hanging on gallery walls, price tags attached. I wore a simple navy dress, hair down for once, even a little lipstick. Aunt Lillian appeared at my side and pressed a glass of champagne into my hand. How do you feel? Terrified. What if nobody buys anything? Someone already has. She nodded toward a woman in pearls studying the centerpiece of the show, the bus stop photograph. A small red dot had already appeared beside the wall placard. That's Mrs. Alvarez. She owns half the art in Monterey County. She just bought that piece for $3,000. $3,000 for something I'd made. Claire, Daniel said, walking up with a grin. I want to introduce you to someone from the magazine. They're considering you for next month's cover. A cover, my face, my name, my story in print. I was mid-introduction when the gallery door opened and my world tilted sideways. Brooke and Trent walked in, still faintly sunburned from Hawaii, completely out of place. Brooke in a floral sundress meant for beach brunch, Trent already frowning at his phone. Then Brooke spotted me. Claire, she rushed forward, arms wide, as though we were reuniting after a tragedy. Oh my God, we've been so worried about you. 50 heads turned. The quartet faltered for half a beat. Brooke, I said evenly, this is unexpected. We had to come. Mom found your account. She's been calling everyone trying to track you down. Trent nodded at me like a business acquaintance. Nice space. It's a gallery, I said. My opening, actually. Brooke blinked, finally taking in the photographs, the guests, the champagne, the price tags. You did all this. Since when do you do this? Since 3 years ago. You never asked what I did with my free time. She leaned in, voice dropping. Claire, I have news. I'm pregnant again, number 3. And I really need you to come home. Trent's swamped. Mom's no help with the kids. I need you. There it was, not an apology. Not a single word of congratulations on the exhibition. Just need. Always need. Brooke, I said quietly, I'm in the middle of my opening night. I know, this is lovely, really. She waved a hand vaguely at the photographs, the life's work hanging behind her, like it was a cute weekend hobby. But we can talk about that later. Right now, I just need to know when you're coming back. She's not, Aunt Lillian said, her voice cutting clean through the room. She lives here now. Trent stepped forward, irritation flickering across his face. With respect, Lillian, this is family business. Family business, Lillian laughed, short and sharp. You mean the family that uninvited her from a vacation and called her free help in an email she wasn't supposed to see. Brooke went pale. Around us, guests had stopped pretending not to listen. The journalist's pen moved faster. We didn't mean it like that, Brooke stammered. How exactly did you mean it? Mrs. Alvarez, the collector, drifted closer, champagne in hand, openly intrigued. I'm sorry, Trent said tightly. Who are you? Someone who just paid $3,000 for that young woman's art, she said evenly. And someone very curious why her own family thinks she should abandon her career to be a free babysitter. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Brooke's eyes filled. Claire, please, let's talk privately. I didn't retreat to a corner. I'd spent 32 years making myself small, whispering, accommodating, disappearing. Not tonight. I stepped forward, into the center of my own exhibition, and spoke clearly enough for the whole room to hear. Brooke, I understand you're pregnant. Congratulations, genuinely. But I'm not coming back to Boston to be your childcare. Claire's. I'm not finished, I said, my voice steady. You can hire a nanny. Trent makes more than enough, and you've never once hesitated to spend money. What you can't do is hire me because I was never paid in the first place. I gestured at the walls. This isn't a hobby, this is my work. I built it for 3 years while everyone in this family assumed I had nothing going on. And just so we're clear, I pointed to the bus stop photograph. That piece sold for $3,000 tonight. I've sold 4 pieces total, $8,000. My work has value, I have value, and I won't trade that to go back to being free labor. Silence, absolute silence. Trent coughed. Brooke's eyes filled with real tears this time, not performance. Then Daniel started to clap. Lillian joined him. Mrs. Alvarez raised her glass in a silent toast. One by one, the rest of the room followed applause not for the photographs, but for me, for the moment I finally stood up and said enough. I didn't smile triumphantly. I didn't gloat. I just looked at my sister and said, I hope your pregnancy goes well, I mean that. Then I turned and walked away. 20 minutes later, the gallery door opened again, and there they were, my parents, standing in the entrance like they'd stepped out of a nightmare. My mother wore the Burberry trench she saved for important occasions. My father stood behind her, visibly uncomfortable. Their eyes found me. My mother walked through my gallery like she owned it. Claire, we need to talk. You came all this way, I said evenly. Of course we did. You disappeared. You left your family when we needed you most. Her voice trembled with righteous offense. And now I find you here playing artist while your sister is pregnant and struggling. Brooke is pregnant and wealthy, I corrected. Not struggling, inconvenienced. Don't be cruel, Claire, this isn't. You're right, I said. It isn't the me you wanted, the one you could count on to do whatever you asked. But that Claire was never seen, Mom, she was just used. My father cleared his throat. Claire, what your mother is trying to say. I know exactly what she's trying to say, Dad. I've heard it my whole life. Family comes first, don't be selfish. I met his eyes. But I wasn't part of the family trip to Hawaii. Remember, so which is it? Am I family or aren't I? Neither of them had an answer. My mother recovered first. Hawaii was one trip. You're blowing this completely out of proportion. Someone had to stay with the children. Someone, I repeated. Why always me? Because you have the time, Claire. You don't have a husband. You don't have children of your own. What else would you possibly be doing? I'd wondered if I'd ever actually use those screenshots. Part of me had hoped I'd never need to. But standing there, surrounded by my own work and my own witnesses, I understood that some truths simply have to be said out loud. I pulled out my phone. Let me read you something. This is an email you sent Brooke a week before the party. My mother's face went white. Keep Claire there to watch the kids. She doesn't have anything important going on anyway. It's basically free help. She should be grateful we're giving her something to do. The gallery had gone completely silent. In Brooke's reply, I went on. She'll probably feel useful for once, honestly. Kind of sad, but it works out for us. Brooke, standing a few feet away, looked like she wanted the floor to open beneath her. Claire, my father said, where did you? It doesn't matter where I found it. What matters is that you wrote it. I lowered my phone. I'm not reading this to embarrass you. I'm reading it so you understand exactly why I left. You never saw me as family, you saw me as staff. And staff is allowed to quit. My mother's mouth opened, closed, opened again. For the first time in my life, she had absolutely nothing to say. It was Trent who broke the silence. This is ridiculous, he snapped, stepping forward. Claire, you're making a scene over nothing. Your family asked you to babysit. Big deal, that's what families do. Not everyone gets to run off and play artist. Pretend, Mrs. Alvarez's voice cut through the room like ice. I just spent $3,000 on her work. I don't pay that kind of money for pretend. Trent turned, his composure cracking. With respect, you don't know this family. I know exactly what I need to, Mrs. Alvarez said, setting down her glass. I know that young woman spent years photographing people the world overlooks, and I know her own family treated her exactly the same way. A murmur rolled through the room. Guests were openly watching now, the kind of attention my mother had always craved, just never like this. Never like this. This is a misunderstanding, my mother tried. A family joke taken out of context. A joke, an older woman with silver hair, one I'd sold a print to earlier that evening, spoke up. Telling your own daughter she has nothing important going on, calling her free help, what exactly is funny about that? More murmurs, more judgment. Decades of carefully managed social capital evaporating in real time. I think, Aunt Lillian said quietly, it might be time for you to go. My mother flushed scarlet. My father took her arm. Brooke was crying now, real and humiliated. Trent stood frozen, finally understanding that none of his courtroom instincts meant anything in this room. "Claire," my mother said, voice shaking, "you'll regret this." "No," I said quietly, "I really won't." She turned and left without another word, my father trailing behind her. The gallery door closed with a soft click that somehow echoed louder than a slam. Brooke lingered a moment longer, mascara streaked, arms wrapped around herself. "I didn't know you felt this way," she said. "I thought you actually liked helping." "No, you didn't," I said, not unkindly. "You never thought about it at all. None of you did." Trent put a hand on her shoulder, and for once, said absolutely nothing. "I hope your pregnancy is healthy," I added. "I hope your kids are happy, but I won't be their unpaid aunt anymore. If you want me in your life going forward, it has to look different. It has to be equal." She nodded through tears. I wasn't sure she actually understood, but it wasn't my job to make her understand anymore. Part 13 After. By the time the gallery closed that night, I'd sold 8 of 15 photographs, $14,000 in total sales. 8,400 of that was mine, exactly as the contract promised. "Not bad for an opening night," Daniel said, handing me the printout. "Especially one with that much unexpected drama," he smiled. "Mrs. Alvarez wants to commission a piece, by the way. She has a property in Big Sur, wants you to photograph the coastline." He handed me a Sinus card. "And the magazine thinks they have enough material for a feature. They're considering you for next month's cover." I tucked the card into my clutch, beside the gallery contract and the interview notes. A commission, a magazine cover, my name, my face, my story. Aunt Lillian helped me carry the unsold pieces back to my room above the cafe that night. 7 photographs still waiting for buyers, but 7 still meant 7 people had looked at my work and seen something worth owning. I set the check on my desk and photographed it, not to post anywhere, just to remember. Payable to Claire Whitfield, $8,400. Proof. Physical proof that I had never, in fact, been nothing. 2 months later, my new life had settled into a rhythm. Up at 5, watching the sun rise over the water, opening the cafe by 6. Mornings pouring coffee, learning the regulars' names, listening to them call me Lillian's niece, the photographer. Afternoons belonged entirely to my own work, in a small rented studio 3 blocks away, just big enough for an editing station and a printer. The first show closed, but Daniel had already booked another for spring, a new series called Thresholds, photographs about the spaces between belonging and standing alone. The magazine feature ran in October, my photograph on the cover next to a headline about a woman who learned to see herself clearly for the first time. Messages poured in afterward, women who'd been the reliable one, the family's free help, the one everyone forgot to thank. "I thought I was the only one. You gave me permission to leave. Thank you for showing me it was possible." My family reached out too, eventually. Brooke texted after the baby, a girl named Charlotte was born, with a photo attached. I sent congratulations and a gift card, nothing more. My mother called once. I didn't pick up. Her voicemail asked simply if I'd gotten this out of my system yet. I deleted it. My father surprised me. His email arrived on an ordinary Tuesday evening, 3 sentences long. "Claire, I saw the magazine, I'm proud of you." That one I kept. These days I sit in my studio looking out at the Pacific. The old Nikon still sits on the shelf, scratched, battered, still working. Beside it sits a newer one, bought with money I earned from my own art. Both cameras matter to me. One taught me how to see. The other is proof that other people finally saw me back. My second exhibition opens next month. 15 new photographs, all exploring where obligation quietly turns into exploitation, where family ends and selfhood begins. I think it might be the best work I've made yet. Aunt Lillian still stops by every morning with coffee and commentary. Daniel checks in weekly with news about collectors and new opportunities. The regulars at the cafe have started requesting the corner table by the window, where I edit photos between customers. I'm not rich, I'm not famous, but I'm seen, and that's enough. As for my family, we exist now in a new, smaller configuration. Christmas cards, the occasional text, an update about the kids now and then. Civil, distant, honestly healthier than before. I haven't been back to Boston. Maybe someday I will, but only as a visitor, never again as the help. The other day I came across an old self-portrait, taken years ago in the mirror of my Boston apartment, back when I was still invisible. The woman in that photo looked exhausted, defeated, like she was waiting for permission to simply exist. I deleted it. That woman is gone now. In her place is someone who takes up space, who builds beautiful things, who says no when she means it and yes only when she chooses to. Someone who finally let herself be seen. That's the real story here, not revenge, not triumph, just freedom. What Claire went through has a name in psychology: parentification. When someone, often the oldest sibling, is handed adult-level responsibility without recognition or reciprocity in return. She also fell into what's known as the family scapegoat role, the member whose needs are routinely pushed aside while a favored sibling, the golden child, absorbs most of the attention and resources. If there's one thing worth taking from her story, it's this: setting a boundary isn't betrayal, and it isn't abandonment. It's simply the recognition that you can't keep pouring from a cup that's already empty, and that the people who genuinely love you would never ask you to. If you've ever felt like Claire, like the reliable one, the one everyone assumes has nothing better to do, remember that your worth was never measured by how useful you are to other people. It was always there, built in. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't to fight back at all. It's to walk away, quietly build something that belongs entirely to you, and let your own life speak louder than any argument ever could. You deserve that, we all do.